Welcome to another American Diabetes Association Be a Friend Friday chat. November is American Diabetes Month, and all month long we'll be chatting with people around the diabetes community. My name is Marley, and today I will be speaking with Anthony and Kimberlee Jackson. They are the parents of daughter Kayla Jackson, who is a collegiate track and field star at the University of Georgia and has been living with type 1 diabetes for the last several years. We'll be discussing her diagnosis and what changes took place as her caregivers once she received the type 1 diagnosis. And since November is also National Family Caregivers Month, we thought hearing, a positive perspective from a caregiver who's been in this world with their daughter is a really great way to support that side of things as well. Welcome, Anthony and Kim. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Well, then, just to start off, could you introduce yourselves a little bit? Give us some background on who you are and what you do.
Okay, I'll go first. Hello, my name is Anthony Jackson, the father of Kayla Jackson. By profession, I run a vocational training school here in Detroit, Michigan, where we focus on the construction trades. I'm also a high school and AAU club track coach.
Hi, and I am Kimberlee Jackson, Kayla Jackson's mom. I am now is a stay-at-home mom, but I am licensed. I'm a licensed counselor by trade, and that's about it.
Awesome. Well, then we will get right into it with, the background on Kayla's diagnosis. So how old was Kayla, and do you kind of remember the events leading up to the diagnosis?
Yeah, Kayla was 13 years old when she was diagnosed. And how we found out, we were actually on our way to a track meet. A couple months prior to that, she had just won the Michigan Indoor High School State 60-meter championship as an 8th grader. And so, a couple months later, we started our outdoor season, and we started a meet maybe two weeks prior to normal. So we traveled down to Dayton, Ohio, and she ran. She was tired doing warm-ups, and, she had actually lost to someone who she had never lost to. And so we kind of looked at it and said, maybe it's because we got out here a little early, right? So we'll go back home. We'll train pretty hard. We've got to come back to Ohio in 2 weeks. We'll see the young lady again and we'll compete. And when we came 2 weeks later, she actually won the meet, but it still wasn't a time that she was capable of running. And we noticed on the way down to Ohio, it was a lot of frequent stops because of urination. She had to use the bathroom almost like every 30 to 45 minutes, which kind of turned a 2.5-hour ride into almost like 7 or 8 hours because we kept stopping. And we really didn't know. She was excited because she was really drinking a lot of water. And so she tapped on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Dad, I drank a whole nother bottle. I'm doing good. I'm hydrating like you always wanted me to." And so we said, well, maybe because she's drinking a lot more than normal, this is why she's continuing to have to use the bathroom. And we got down and we did a warm-up lap. And I mean, when she came back, she was exhausted and she was bending over and she was like, "Dad, I'm just tired." I'm like, something's not right. And then later on that night, because we ended up spending the night, later on that night, she actually had a accident, throughout the night. And she was embarrassed about it. And she got up and tried to really clean up and do some things on her own. And I happened to wake up and hear what was going on. I said, "This isn't right." I said, "When we get home tomorrow, we need to get to the doctor and see what's going on." And see, even on the way home, it was a lot of frequent stops for urination. And as my wife was driving, I was Googling, and everything was pointing to type 1 diabetes. And we were like, man, and not knowing much about it at the time, it was almost like, please, God, don't let this be the case. It was almost like a death sentence to us because we had no idea of what type 1 really was and what it could really do. And when we got home, my wife got her to the doctor right away, and it was confirmed that she was type 1. And Kim, you could maybe talk a little bit more about where her glucose levels were at the time, because I wasn't at the initial appointment there, but that's kind of how it went and how we found out.
Yeah, when we got to the doctor, they tested her with a finger hand prick, and the doctor came back in, and basically that's when they told us that you need to get her straight to the hospital. I can't remember what her numbers was. She might have been around, was it
It
500?
was in the fives. It was really high.
Yeah, maybe 500. And they was like, you need to go straight to the hospital. Kayla and I just looked at each other and we just started crying, and we just didn't know what that meant. And so I immediately called my husband and told him we're on our way to the hospital. And so we all met up there. And then once we got there, they ended up keeping her for like 2 or 3 days. And they ended up through those days, they end up educating us. We got a lot of information, a lot of education on it. Like he said, we were like thinking her track career is over. We didn't know what we were going to do. What was our next move? And one thing I did that always stand out to me, as soon as she found out about it and they start teaching her about the shots and giving her the shots, she would not let us give her a shot. She wanted to do everything on her own. She's a very independent child. But for some reason, she let her dad give her her shot. And I was like, after that, she didn't want no more. But ironically, with her, she's oddly afraid of shots. So, and she still feel that way, even though she had to give herself shots over and over. And one thing that we were very thankful for was the nurse that we received. She was type 1 diabetic. She wore a pump, and she educated us on it. And they said, it's nothing to be sad about. Now that she has this insulin, she'll perform better with her sports and everything. So this is going to help her. She'll run faster, she'll have the energy she needs, with the, proper nutrition and diet. And by her being so young, she made sure to tell us she still can eat whatever she wants. She just has to make sure she covers it and calculate her carbs properly. Because she was saying, we don't like to just tell the younger kids they can't have nothing anymore, which, can lead to depression and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of how our hospital situation went.
Yeah, that story actually really reminds me of my diagnosis story. I was 7 at the time, so a little bit younger than Kayla, but it was also like the frequent urination that like tipped my mom off. And she was like, this seems wrong, but we had no type 1 history in our family, so she didn't know anything about it. And she was like, it's probably some sort of like bladder infection or UTI. Like they'll give you some medication and you'll be good to go. And then they pricked my finger and they're like, you can't go home. You need to go straight to the hospital.
Yeah.
So very, very similar. I think that must be a similar, way that a lot of parents or kids find out is like, oh, something's wrong. You're not really sure what. And then they tell you like, oh no, your whole life is going to change and you need to go straight to the hospital and like figure this out. You mentioned how you guys weren't really aware of what type 1 was prior to her diagnosis, and you got a lot of really good training right away. But what were some of like the early challenges you guys faced as a family with this new diagnosis and new way of life?
Some of our challenges was making sure she count her carbs correctly, because she will over insulate or not properly count them. Or if we're at restaurants, the website will say one thing, she'll go according to that, but it doesn't quite balance out, and she'll end up dropping anyway. And trying to think of other things, but one of our biggest things was counting the carbs and not giving yourself too much insulin. Another challenge was throughout the night. Once we discovered on the parent side that she had it, I think I still haven't slept the same since. We're always on alert, and we're always because we get the alerts to our phone. I don't know if you're gonna get to that question later, but the device that we get the alerts. So I think my husband is a little worse than I am. I kind of tried to embrace it more and to give her a little space, but he's always on her numbers, calling her, you know. So that was like challenges for her to like probably getting sick of us, but calling her or letting her know your numbers are low, your numbers are low. So yeah, that was a big thing. I don't know if Tony have anything else to add.
Yeah, I guess the way I look at it is the day I don't call, right? What would happen? Kayla's a freshman. Well, she's going into her sophomore year of college now, but really going away for the first time as a freshman, is really, really terrifying for parents because we're not just a couple minutes away, we're hours away, right? And we can't get there in time. And so, I've gotten a habit, and I know I shouldn't do this. My wife kills me about it, but I sleep with the phone under my pillow because I want to hear the alerts, when they go off at night. I want to make sure that I either text her first and then I give her some time to respond. And if I don't hear anything, then I start with the phone calls, right? And she has a really, really good support system at school. So, if I can't get plan B, I go to C. I'll call her roommate, then I'll call a coach. And, I think for us that, the counting the carbs and Jen just being away so far, wondering if she's going to hear these alerts while she sleeps, that's a little challenging for us. So, once Kayla was diagnosed, we were all diagnosed, right? And we started changing some things, as a family. But yeah, we're tired. We don't sleep. We don't.
And
I don't know
and
if
I,
we'll ever sleep, but
and I think to
Kayla,
take it
she's independent. Mhm.
Yeah, and to take it back a little further, right after the hospital, we had to get used to she didn't have all the nice bells and whistles of the new technology. And I think the insurance make you um do everything manually at first. So we had to set our clock every morning about 2 in the morning or whatever to make sure she's not dropping because she had to do the old school way with the hand prick, you know, test it manually with her finger. And so I think I couldn't wait till they gave us the approval time frame to get the new technology, which that has been a blessing in disguise because we had to make sure in the middle of the night we had to wake up to make sure she haven't dropped because there's no device to tell you. But once she got that, that helped her so much more. And then the newer technology, she was adamant that she didn't want any tubes connecting to her Dexcom. She has the Omnipod, and a lot of it because being a female, fitted clothes, and a track runner, she didn't want the tubing showing and all that. So, or having to deal with it. So, we had to do the Omnipod. But once the Omnipod recently just started working with the Dexcom, that helped us a lot as well. So it's just been stages along the way that is getting better and better with technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing how much tech can really like improve your management and just like kind of allowing your diabetes to take a little bit of a back seat and like not always have to be the top front of mind constantly. And so it's really great that like you've been able to find what works so well, especially as a athlete and all of that. You mentioned like when she was diagnosed, she was already, an incredible track athlete. What were those first few months looking like after her diagnosis of like figuring out how to compete while living with type 1?
Yeah, those first few months were really challenging. At one point, we weren't running track anymore. We sat down for about a month or so, and then one day I went to Kayla and I said, "Hey, you mind? You want to go to the track? Let's just do some warm ups, just see how you feel, right?" And she said, "Okay, let's do it." And we went. She warmed up pretty good. She wasn't tired. And I said, "Well, let's try some other drills," and we added some other things to it. And that day, after we finished, she said, "You know what, Dad, I'm back. I can do this." And from that day on, um, she went 100% practicing. We picked it back up. She had a phenomenal year. She actually finished that year as a national champion in AAU. So, it was really inspiring, for me and for other people. But she eventually got back to it.
That's amazing. And it sounds like you guys figured it out fairly quickly of like, okay, let's take a beat, let's figure this out, but then let's get back into like the things you love and the things you want to be doing because it's absolutely possible to do anything you want to and dream to do.
Yeah. And that would add another challenging part just with practicing and making sure that she carved up enough for practices and not end up dropping in the middle of the night because she didn't carb up properly. And so that took some time to get used to. But it all worked out. And because she was diabetic, thank God the AAU allowed me as a coach and a father to be actually on the track by her side because actually at the Junior Olympics, she had just competed and came to the middle of the field and passed out because her sugar had dropped so low. So it was thankful that I was able to be right there because I had some snacks that we were able to get her right back up. But yeah, that was a little challenging just trying to figure out, how do we keep our carbs, how do we carb up, how do we keep our numbers right in such a fast paced environment that doesn't really allow you the time to eat, right? So, but ultimately we figured it out.
Yeah, it's amazing that you're able to, figure all that out and, figure out what it takes to kind of keep her in the right levels because if you go too high, that'll affect her performance. If she goes too low, that'll affect her performance. So it's a lot of how does the insulin, the snacks, the carbs, all of that affect her body specifically? Because obviously everyone's body's different and how that will look is going to be different.
Yeah. I also do want to add for the parents that are listening, when they do go through this and start off, Kayla was depressed. She was really depressed about, it's a transition. And I just want to let them know to be patient until they get used to things, until you get used to things. It is a brighter side to it. You just have to go through the education and deal with the transitions, but we never thought we would be at this level. We thought it was all over. We wasn't going to see her run again, but it worked out. She's won so many titles and championships. Is my husband can call a lot of them off, but in college she became freshman of the year, SEC freshman of the year. Team USA wanted her to run. So we never thought we would be at this point, but just stay strong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned how much she's traveled and competed. What does that look like living with type 1 and doing all of this travel and making sure you have all of the supplies and making sure you keep everything like ready to go for those type of races?
Yes, we've been just blessed all the way around. To take it even back further with the recruiting process for Kayla, the reason why we picked the University of Georgia is because of how they stepped in. Kayla dropped low when it was time for us to go on the football field during the game. And we saw all the coaches kind of just told us to stand aside. We got this. And they went running for carbs and, coaches were stepping in and they helped her out, and she was okay. But another reason why we selected them is because, we felt safe and that they cared. The coaches wanted the devices, the alerts to come to their cell phones. Even the head coach wanted it to come to her cell phone, the assistant's cell phone, the nutritionist, and the trainers. So they get her alerts in the middle of the night. That helped make us felt safe. And actually, when we were going through insurance issues and approvals with the devices, Georgia stepped up and paid for it. They said, we will pay for the device for her. If we know that's going to help her perform better, we need to get whatever she needs to perform better. So they had it cleared, and the pharmacy got extra supplies from the local pharmacy there. And right at that time, they got their devices, and then our insurance ended up approving it. So she kind of got 2 different devices extra. So that is a unique situation that we were so thankful for. But I'm trying to remember your original question.
Oh, I had asked about travel and how you,
Yeah.
how you work with, traveling for all of these meets, how you stay prepared, things like that with living with type 1.
Yeah, extra
travel
supplies.
wise. Yeah, that the hospital actually gave us a diabetes handbook, right? And it tells you all of the things that you need to pack before taking trips. And that was like our Bible. We went by it. We made sure that we packed everything that we had enough of. And some of these devices, there's always some technical issues, and so we had to bring extra devices too in case some didn't work. And so that really helped us out a lot, just by having it even tells you how many carbs to take before you work out. So that was a really good handout that we received. I think one thing to add too, as far as um, selection of the colleges, is that one of the major questions we ask is, take Kayla's type 1 diabetic, please tell us a little bit about what you would do if Kayla was to fall low. And every college response, except Georgia, but every college response was, did you talk to the nutritionist? And that right there let us know that they really didn't have a good understanding of type 1, right? And that really helped us really narrow down and make the selection. And as the coaches were responding, Kayla was just marking the line through. Nope, off the list, off the list, off the list. And Georgia got the answer right.
Yeah, although nutrition is a big part of it, but I don't think they got the part that she dropped so low she could die. And so that was our biggest fear. And they just didn't get it. They just kept sending us, just go talk to the nutritionist. We wanted to hear more about what steps would you take if by us not being there, how would someone get to her? So, they made sure she had a roommate, coaches, like responded like they'll get to, try to get to her, those kind of answers. But the other schools it was strictly about just only eating.
Mm-hmm. Well, and yeah, that is something that you absolutely want people to understand, is like, if she's going low, we're not going to have time to ask a nutritionist what's happening. You need to step in and help her get something to bring the blood sugar up, because there's not a ton of time if she's already going low and she's starting to, pass out or get really weak or things like that. And so, yeah, hearing how these different schools responded, then just kind of crossing them off the list, it makes complete sense to me. That's what I would have done too. I'd been like, nope, that's not the answer. That's not the right answer. And so it's amazing to hear how great her support system is, with like her coaches and her teammates and everyone being able to, follow her numbers with her and be there for that support to help her, perform at the top level that she is. Mm-hmm. What is one of the most important things you've learned about supporting a child living with type 1?
You want to go first, Anthony?
Great. That's a great question. I think just the whole mental part of it. Like Kim mentioned early on that Kayla was extremely depressed. Like, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why am I not normal? And just having to explain to her that you are normal, right? There are millions of people that are living with type 1 diabetes and that are doing extremely well. But I had to kind of tie it into a whole spiritual point because we never knew. Kayla is kind of like if I had to compare her to athletes in other sports at such an early age, you would look at like a LeBron James or a Kobe Bryant. And she's in that class of young elite athletes. And the question for us as parents was, why us? Right? Why did you pick us to become a parent of such a great athlete? And we never could really figure that out. It just clicked. And I said, Kayla, I think I got this. There's a purpose for you to be here. And what you're doing has the potential to put you on a world stage, right? And there are millions of people around the world who suffer from type 1 or who have type 1 diabetes or that will eventually develop that over time. And I think God has placed that with you because he's going to put you around and he's going to put you in spaces where you're going to be able to let people know that it's okay. We can live a normal life just like everybody else. It's not going to prevent you from going after whatever your goals are. And when she started really starting to look at it that way, and then starting to get messages on Instagram, you're so inspiring. I'm type 1 too. I run track, and it started to really make sense to her. But initially, it was a challenge, for all of us. We were all depressed. But we had to figure it out. We had to move on. And I think that's what really helped her out.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much of a 180 your life takes after a diagnosis like this. And it really is like a process to kind of come to terms with it and then realize what you need to make it work and then get to the point of, I can do anything, I can achieve anything I need to. There's these extra steps I need to take, but it's not going to stop me at any point. And so that was something my mom always really said to me when I was growing up. She's like, none of this is going to stop you. You're going to be able to achieve all of the things you want. Just make sure that like you stay healthy and keep doing what you need to be doing, and nothing will stop you from achieving those goals. So just to kind of like wrap up, how proud of you are you of Kayla and everything she's overcome and everything she's achieved up to this point? Because I'm sure she has a long career still ahead of her just being a sophomore in college, but I'm sure you're so proud of everything she's already done.
Yes, we're so proud of her. It's just unbelievable. Every year she surprises us with her accomplishments, and she's a fighter, and we're proud that she pushes through all her obstacles. And we're just so thankful. She have a lot of goals, and she set her mind to it. And she just kind of blows us out of the water. We never thought she would make the finals as a freshman in the SEC. We never thought like she would be able to travel and go to Costa Rica and Puerto Rico for Team USA to travel. They were calling on her to like come and step in older age groups for her to be on relays and stuff. So her accomplishment, just like, her coach want to try to prepare her this year, possibly to run pro in Paris for 2024. So we'll see where all this takes us. Either way, I'm ready for if it's the regular route or the pro route, but I think life skills is important as well, and trying to figure each level we still trying to figure out with the diabetes, you know. So it's been something to make us proud. She's been independent about it. I think our next hurdle is she wants to move in an apartment on her own, like, well, with roommates, but the apartment thing, not been in the residence hall and all that. So each level is like, okay, there's something else new we gotta deal with, and you know, hope we have the support. But we're just so proud of her and her independence and her the way she has the fight in her. I don't know, Tony, you want to add something?
Yeah, we're extremely proud of Kayla. You know, and like Kim said, with her whole independence, you know, sometimes we'll say things to Kayla and we don't get a response. But she always comes back later and proves that she's listening, right? And so one of the first things she said she wanted to get her own apartment. And you know, initially it was just herself. And I was like, well, Kayla, you know, who can we call if you're running low, right? What are some things that we can put in place? Maybe you'll have to get a wired line installed, right? Something that's loud that you can hear if we need to call you, because sometimes she'll fall asleep and leave her phone on vibrate, right? And won't hear the calls when she falls low. And you know, we would explain to her that that's our concern. And a couple weeks later, she'll come back and say, well, I'm looking for a roommate now, right? And so to making sure that she's still going to have that support system that she needs. But just to see what she has done in such a short period of time with the challenges that she's had to overcome is phenomenal. I often refer to her as my inspiration, somebody that inspires me, you know, my superhero, which is my daughter. And from time to time, it gets emotional, but they're happy tears, right? And you know, thank God for covering us, and you know, we're looking for the best for Kayla to keep going.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's such an important thing to remember, that like things change and there's new steps every time. Next step is finding, if she wants to do an apartment, what does that look like? It's a constant like education. And I've been doing this for over 20 years and I feel like I'm still learning new things every day. But you just get better and better at like navigating those changes and those pivots and like understanding what that's going to look like. Well, thank you both again for sharing your story with us. Like hearing this perspective of parents and caregivers of a child living with type 1 is so valuable to a lot, especially a lot of parents out there who can relate to it. And hearing how you've been a team since day one and you still are a team, and that family support and her team in Georgia's that support, like it's amazing. And you're really helping Kayla reach her full potential living with type 1. And it's very inspiring to hear everything that she's gone through and everything she's achieving.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you all for joining us for another Be a Friend Friday chat. Please keep checking back on our American Diabetes Association social media pages all throughout the month for more stories and events we have coming up for American Diabetes Month. All right, thanks again, guys.
Thank you.